Hey guys, Blake Rodriguez with Dream Come True Canine, and on this episode of Blake's Takes, where we talk all things dog training in the pet dog world, we're gonna be talking about teaching versus enforcing and why we have referees in sports. Now this topic came about because we were talking dog training and dog training methods and when something makes more sense than something else and when to apply this tool versus that tool, and it led to the real difference between teaching and enforcing and understanding what you tend to be doing, the quadrants that you tend to be working in when it comes to teaching versus enforcing. When we look at sports and we look at teaching our kids sports or even learning sports as adults, we often aren't being thrown into a game right away. In the beginning, we're learning the rules, we're learning how they're applied, we're learning not only the rules of the sport, but the ins and outs of how things work, from when you're on the field, the court, or the rink, when you're off, how many timeouts there are, how many periods or quarters or halves there are, understanding plays and understanding defensive versus offensive position, things like that. And a lot of that in the early stages should be done in a way where you're enjoying yourself and you're having a good time and you're learning the rules before you're being held accountable for them. There is a lot of dog training that I personally believe tends to be created more to please the owner and appear really nice, but often unfortunately is really unrealistic in application in real world situations. So it's not to knock certain methods, but it's really important to understand where certain methods are extremely valuable and where they have their pros and where those methods might have their cons. And that's certainly for both sides of the spectrum. So when we're talking about teaching dogs how to do stuff, what increases behavior and what allows dogs to be more motivated to want to do something, to give them incentive to want to do it, you're using a lot of reinforcement. There's a belief in dog training, it's called extinction. And the belief with extinction is that if you drill a behavior long enough, if you drill it often enough, if you create a habit, that once the habit is there, you don't have to address the bad habit. You can ignore that. You just make the desirable or the appropriate choice more preferable, and then the bad choice goes away. Now, unfortunately, this is very unrealistic in a lot of situations, and in some situations, maybe not so. But the belief is that once you've done that, they will always make that choice. Now, I don't know about you, but when it comes to humans, we often know what that right choice is. We often know we shouldn't stay up late. I shouldn't stay up and play these video games. I shouldn't stay out and order that extra drink and then go to this next bar because I have to wake up early. There's consequences for that, of course, but we're not even going to really talk about those consequences right now. But I know I shouldn't do this. I know I shouldn't cheat on my boyfriend. I know I shouldn't cheat on my girlfriend. I know I shouldn't cheat on my husband, my wife. I know that I should do my homework and not go out. I know I shouldn't eat this right now. I'm on a diet. Often we know what the right choice is to make, but we still find ourselves not making that choice. Now I ask you this question: are we really gonna hold dogs to a much higher standard than humans when we're aware as humans what the right choice is to make and we're still not making it? Why would we unfairly hold dogs to that high standard, believing that just because they know what the choice is and you drill it more often, that they will always make that choice? So with that said, I believe we need to be in a position to be able to enforce. And when it comes to enforcing, it's very different than teaching. Even amongst professional athletes that make millions of dollars a year, they're still being governed, in this case, by the rules of the sport, because the referees are still there. And these athletes are still taking penalties, still taking fouls, still making mistakes. There's still fights out there when they know that it's not right. So I really believe that as dog trainers and as dog owners, we must prepare in a way and train our dogs in a way where it is preferable. They should make these choices. We want them to do these things, and they often will make the right choice, but we must, as responsible dog owners and trainers, put ourselves in a position to be able to enforce the rules when the rules are broken. If we're dealing with pet dogs in real world environments where we cannot control our environment forever, we have to be prepared to be able to enforce rules. This is where punishment comes in. But you have to understand what the definition of punishment is, because I'm not an advocate of abusing dogs. And that should be a given, that should be automatic, but unfortunately, a lot of people like to market punishment and associate that with abuse and then claim science behind it. But what science is, what the scientific definition of what punishment is anything that decreases the likelihood of the dog repeating the behavior. So if you're looking to deter a dog from doing something and you successfully do it, you decrease the likelihood in the dog repeating the behavior, it is punishment. Now, there are only two ways to punish something, according to science. You can add something unpleasant. Unpleasant doesn't necessarily need to hurt. Unpleasant doesn't necessarily need to be abusive. It could be abusive, but you can still administer punishment without being abusive. There's only two ways to punish a behavior. And when I say punish, decrease the likelihood in the dog repeating the behavior. You can add something unpleasant, or you can remove something that is unpleasant. However, I can give you an example of driving on my road trip to Florida, because for whatever reason, now I have a kid, I didn't want to fly, I'm driving to Florida. And we find out that on I-95, going I-95 south, because this is the highway that you need to take, state troopers are offering a reward. You will be rewarded with $100. For some people, $100 is the reward outweighs. There is no consequence in this situation, because the consequence is I'm just gonna get there a little bit later than I had planned. And if you're in no rush, and maybe financially you really need the $100, you want the $100. In some situations, some people have really legitimate reasons for why they want to get there. They just want to hurry up and get there to sip, they're on vacation, to sip on a pina colada. Or they want to hurry up because they're going to be late and they have business. Or they're just super excited for the holidays to go see their family. And financially, they're all right, and they really don't care about the $100 because when they go there, they're not going to spend a lot of money anyway. In some situations, the reward is not more motivating than the consequence. Now, the belief here would be you always have something that can be more rewarding. And in some situations, that's just never going to be the case. For some dogs that have maybe strong prey drive, they're gonna wanna go ahead and choose the prey over a reward regardless of what you make that. And there's a bunch of other examples that I can give, but now we just spoke before about the $100 on the highway. You're removing a reward for me not following the rules. In some situations, that's not enough. In some situations, you need to add something unpleasant. What they do in hockey, they add penalties, they add fines. Penalties have different levels of severity, right? They do this in sports as well. Different flags, 5 yards removal, 10 yards, who knows what it is, out of the game, all these things. Basketball, you get X amount of fouls before you're fouled out. Speeding on the highway, you speed, it's a $100 ticket and 2 points on your license. And you can only get X amount of points before it gets more severe and your license is suspended, right? So we're equipped to enforce the rules here. But if you're not preparing yourself with using tools as a clear language to be able to punish behaviors because you're training in a way where you believe that you're just gonna reward aggression away, or you're gonna reward and treat and love leash pulling away, and you're gonna love and reward things that are inappropriate. If you're not looking to punish these behaviors, you're gonna find yourself in trouble with a lot of real world situations. What you should be doing is actually finding a really nice blend and balance between training what you want, but making sure that you're in a position to be able to also train for what you don't want. And understanding how to administer punishment, understanding where removing or adding something, in this case removing something pleasant, might make sense, or adding something unpleasant and understanding what that unpleasant stimuli or what that reward is, and finding that blend and mixing and matching that's what's gonna put you in a position to be able to thrive out here in the real world. Without that, you will always be limiting yourself, because if you choose to just do one, for example, only reward the good, ignore the bad, you will find yourself severely restricted. When it comes to groups of play, you can't trust your dog around more than one other dog. Once you get 3 or more, you can't control it, so you restrict them, you don't allow it. Off-leash behavior, you've taught your dog how to call, how to come back to you, but when they don't make the mistake, you're not positioned to punish that behavior because you don't know how, or you don't believe in punishment, you don't believe in decreasing the likelihood of the dog repeating the behavior, which doesn't make any sense. You just find yourself in a really, really rough situation. The idea of extinction suggests that the trigger is something that you can avoid. And in the beginning of training, you do look to avoid those things because you're teaching. But when it comes to enforcing, you want to be able to enforce the rule in an environment that is less and less controlled over time, because that means that you can include your dog in more and more real world situations without worrying about the circumstances. And to an extent you should, but you don't want to find yourself not going outside in the middle of the day, only going out early morning or late afternoon because your dog knows how to walk nicely next to you, but the moment it sees another dog and it goes bananas, it knows how to do that, but we're not punishing that behavior. We don't understand how to punish that behavior. So instead, what you're doing is you're avoiding dogs. So if like the dog is dog aggressive or human aggressive, avoid all humans. Because if you can control your environment, then you're gonna see results. And it's just really unrealistic. So when it comes to setting your dog up for practical real world situations, it's really, really safe to understand as a dog owner or a dog trainer how to apply what and when to apply it. So when we're teaching things, it's assuming the dog doesn't really know what to do. But once you've taught these things, you want to enforce the rules. These professional athletes, these professional hockey players do not need to be taught what the rules are. That's not the job of the referee. That's not the job of the umpire or the official. Their job is to enforce the rules because these athletes are well aware what the rules are. We just have to be there to hold them accountable. If you're not putting yourself in a position to hold your dog accountable for the behaviors and the rules and the manners that you've taught them, you're going to live a severely restricted life and really, really miss out on a lot of really cool experiences and places that you would have been able to take your dog if you were in a position to be able to referee and coach them more effectively. Something for you guys to think about, and please make sure to share this with anybody that you think is in a position where this might help them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next topic of Blake's Takes.